Good evening. We welcome you to our third episode of the Weekend Research Project. My name is Robert Gadomski. I'm joined by my colleagues John Shear and David Perotto. On Tuesday, America elected Barack Obama to a second term. He won what many think would be a landslide, winning only 2 states less than he did in 2008. He also won the popular vote by 2.5%, close to 2 million votes. Republicans lost Senate seats across the country they were expected to win, including in Missouri and Indiana, as well as 8 congressional seats, as well as a couple that's still yet to be called in Florida and California. John, what do you deem the reasoning for this, and what's the future?
Well, I think the Republican Party, to quote every other political pundit out there, has to do some soul searching. I think the main reason that they lost is that this is a complete rejection of their base. And due to demographic shifts, their base is no longer really viable to their party. I think Mitt Romney was the best candidate that they had out there, but I think that the main underlying question is that the main underlying point is that this is a complete rejection of the Tea Party extremism that has characterized the Republican Party in the last couple of years. I think the word conservative has come all of a sudden to mean, extremists out there. I think we've seen that.
Well, it's extreme because Democrats have labeled it as extreme. Democrats spent a lot of money, super PAC money, early on, demonizing Mitt Romney, making him an extreme far-right candidate.
But look at the candidates that were up there standing with Mitt Romney at the debate. We had Newt Gingrich, who was saying abolish the EPA. We had,
Gingrich is a moderate.
We had
his government.
Well, but he was ridiculous. He was saying we should abolish we should elect federal judges. We should completely change our constitutional system. You had Rick Perry.
Well, let's look at the flip side of the EPA now. What's the EPA going to do now? They already talked about carbon taxes, which is going to be a tax on everybody. They're going to come out and they're going to do more on coal as well. You're going to see a huge amount of coal jobs lost.
Well, first of all, when it comes to coal, when it comes to regulating greenhouse gas emissions, I think the right has mislabeled it by saying that President Obama is going to regulate. Whoever was president would have to regulate greenhouse gas emissions. It's a Supreme Court ruling on it. In the case of Massachusetts versus EPA, the court basically held that the Bush administration refused to regulate greenhouse gas emissions. They said, look, you have to make a finding. You have to find that greenhouse gas emissions either don't endanger the public health, or if you find that they do, you have to regulate it. And they didn't want to put the science of climate change on trial because, quite frankly, I think they were afraid that they would lose. So whoever was president would have to regulate greenhouse gas emissions. It's just unless Congress comes up with some other kind of legislation that says you can't. So President Obama has been exactly that extreme on it. And a carbon tax, a carbon cap and trade system is pretty much dead.
They're actually talking about it recently last week, that they're talking about bringing it back to cut the deficit.
It would cut the deficit in half. And per the, I think it was the Congressional Budget Office that said that.
They also said that we'd have in 2001, they also said right now we'd have $2 trillion in debt only. So
in what?
They'd only have $2 trillion in debt only. So we really can't take what the CBO says. Well, and they also said the stimulus would bring us down to 5.5% unemployment in 5 months.
Well, because there was also a series of other steps that actually weren't implemented. So we can't really say that their reasoning wasn't justified when major parts of it weren't implemented. For example, the green jobs. Green jobs assumed that we would have a cap and trade system. We didn't. So that's why those goals weren't met. But anyway, I just want to get back to the underlying thing. It's a complete rejection of the Tea Party ideology. You guys would have won the Senate if you didn't have this extreme wing of the party.
We would have won 2 seats in the Senate.
Well,
we would have won Missouri, and we would have won Indiana. And we probably would have won both seats if both of them didn't talk about vagina during the debates, let's be honest. I know if Murdoch doesn't say that about rape, he wins. If Aiken just doesn't speak, he wins. Those are the 2 most physically conservative candidates that were put up there. Aiken beat a Sarah Palin-backed candidate, the first Sarah Palin-backed candidate to lose this year in a primary. So that was more of the disease known as foot and mouth syndrome that cost those 2 seats. Elizabeth Warren was probably a better candidate than Scott Brown. They both ran a good race. Massachusetts is a liberal state that Mitt Romney lost by 25 points when he was the governor for 4 years. It hasn't gone red in since maybe Reagan in '84?
But in the last election cycle too, you could have won Delaware if you didn't have that
O'Donnell was
She
there.
was, she did win.
If you don't, the thing with the Tea Party is they do inspire Republicans to get back to physically conservative ideology.
Yeah, because
But
they're
it's
so,
still the middle, the people. in
yeah,
the
they're
middle.
so right wing, you know.
They are completely, they are right-wing at points, but they are economic conservatives. And the thing with Tea Party is, and some of them are funded by big, rich Koch brother type people. A lot of them are, but others aren't. And there's one in Utah that's not funded. They're not establishment
Think about
candidates.
this though, right? So last time we had the debt ceiling raised, right? They were the ones not allowing it to be raised. They were the ones pushing it.
Banner and Obama came to an agreement,
Right,
and
but the thing is, you know, you look at that, if you don't raise the debt ceiling, you know, you're talking about instantly you're cutting all services, everything's getting cut there. It's gonna hurt us completely.
The market's gonna go down.
You know, the way they work is completely obscene. I'm not a big Tea Partier at all.
I mean, they held this country hostage, basically,
true.
for 6 weeks. And I think they might have been responsible for the downgrade, really, because they generated a lot of negative
They were
publicity.
responsible.
I mean, I told my friend in 2010, they will be the death of the Republican Party.
I don't think they'll be the death of Republicans. I don't know if Republicans have as good a year as they did in 2010 without the Tea Party. And you said earlier on that it was a rejection of conservative ideas. He won by 48%. He won 52 to 48%. Let's round both numbers up. It was like 51.9 to 48.5, I believe, something of that nature. But he demonized Mitt Romney early. We still have 40% of the electorate. When you say that African Americans and Hispanics, I don't know what liberals want Republicans. Obviously, they don't want them to, but think that they should do.
Well, I mean, with Hispanics, start would be not
The Dream Act,
not demonizing all immigrants as illegal immigrants, and not, you know, Hispanics, they completely.
What do you want to call people who were here legally?
Well, you have to come up with a path to citizenship, a realistic solution. You can't just say we're going to round up 12 million people and ship them back. It's not realistic.
Again, a lot of
Let's be
the
honest here, though. You know, illegal immigrants helped this country a huge amount. You know, let's look at Hurricane Sandy. You know, how many people at Home Depot that are illegal that were picked up for $85 a day that you'd have to pay thousands of dollars for people?
We don't know of those.
On top of that, you know,
What sort of things?
you take a look at our food, same thing. You know, who's going to work for $4 an hour, $5 an hour, picking our raspberries? You know, think about how much food inflation would go up if you had to pay someone benefits.
If you had
to pay
union
someone-
benefits.
Right. If you had to pay them benefits, if you had to pay them, you know, minimum wage, you know how much you'd pay for food? A slice of pizza would be $5 a slice.
But what I'm saying is the way that they demonize that doesn't help in the Hispanic bloc, because the Hispanic people, a lot of times they know somebody who is illegal. It's a very issue that comes close to home, and by getting out up there and saying we're going to send everybody back, and we're going to do all these things, it scares the heck out of them, and they're not going to
Well, you guys do a good job
And then
there
there's
at
the
helping out with that.
The whole Sotomayor thing with the wise Latina, and they attacked for that, and that alienated some voters too. But if you
We
look
could
at this,
discuss that quote. I don't know the exact quote, but we could discuss it. It was,
yeah, I mean, it wasn't the best quote, but if you look at it, and you look at California, I mean, California is an example where there's been a demographic shift. The Republican Party is almost an irrelevancy there.
well, the Democrats,
They have a supermajority now.
the Democrats have held power in California for the last.
Yeah, but now more so.
But now there's a supermajority, so you need to have 75%.
And how? What's the condition of California at this point?
I mean, it's basically that they're at risk of being spectators in government.
Well, what this will prove, though, is now that if California burns, you know, we're going to
The
see
blood
that
is on the
liberals,
hands of the liberals.
Correct. So you're talking about $102 billion in bonds that they have. They have $10 billion a year coming due annually for the teachers union over the next 30 years. And on top of that, they have $200 billion in unfunded liabilities. Their goal is what? To raise taxes, which they've already came out with. They've raised taxes for people who are over $250,000 in income. So what happens is you're going to see a shift of wealthy people leaving California. Just like what they did in France. They raised the taxes on people in France, and they have a mass movement out of France.
Well, because they're
Here it's even easier. You can jump across another state and work there.
well, it's just as easy in Europe because they tax based on residency. We tax based on citizenship. But I don't see that happening in California because from past experience, they've done that before, and they actually saw a rise in the number of people, of millionaires in the state, rather than a decline. But I think it was last time it was over a quarter million. So I don't know.
Well, you have to think that we have to look at the circumstances here, right? We have an internet boom. You have a lot of people. You have a lot of the millionaires there are from basically internet companies. They all have companies that are in the internet. They all have things along those lines. You know, it's not called Silicon Valley for no reason.
But yeah, a lot of clean energy tech startups there too. I mean, we don't.
When you're getting $200 million loans and you're paying yourself, you know, when you're friends with Obama, of course you're going to be a millionaire.
One thing Wednesday also marked was the beginning of the 2016 presidential race. I have my list of candidates that we may see, and this time we will see 2 primary processes, which will probably cost $2 or $3 billion. Now, who are you looking at as your front runners in 2016? We only have 200 shows left to debate this. So, in 4 years from 3 weeks ago, who are we going to be debating?
Well, first of all, I think it's premature to really come out with a candidate. I mean, I think definitely Cuomo wants to be it.
I think Barack Obama was the Democratic candidate in 2008, right after he made his speech at the convention in 2004. I just think that's how politics is. Usually it's whoever releases a book will be the candidate, you have to watch what you say. But who would be your top 3 Democrats, who would be your top 3 Republicans?
Well, I think probably Andrew Cuomo, Deval Patrick
Of
Massachusetts, the governor of Massachusetts, and probably O'Malley. Yeah, he's been mentioned, but I'm not sure if he's going to actually, if anything's actually going to come out of it.
Hillary?
Hillary, I think she has great support, but I think she might be too old by then.
Okay.
She'll be, close to 70.
And on the Republican ticket?
The Republican ticket, it's going to depend on the outcome of this civil war.
I think it's going to depend on the outcome of the next 2 years. What liberals have to understand is that they had a mandate in this election on Tuesday. The Senate's in their power, they won congressional seats, they won many propositions across the country. So now you govern, and Barack Obama gets his wish, Bush tax cuts are gone, tax cuts are raised, and the economy does not improve. And maybe we're at 7.9% unemployment right now, maybe we're at 8 in 2 years from now.
Well, let's be honest, look at some of the
We're going to
flip
talk about
side.
the market later in my one-on-one interview with David Corona.
Let's on the flip side, there are now 30 governors, Republican governors. So
Republicans have dominated the governors over the past few years. As much as you want to say that the Republican Party is extinct and their demographics are changing, if you look at the past 3 years, 3 years ago they won governorships in West Virginia and New Jersey. 2 years ago they had the most gains in Senate and House Republican history. That's a mandate. A president has never been, theoretically punched in the mouth.
In the Senate history. How many wins?
There has never been a landslide election like there was in 2010, the House of Representatives and the Senate.
They didn't win the Senate.
But they won 6 to 8 seats there, one of which was Barack Obama's old seat himself. And then if you look even last year, a district that has not become Republican since 1929, my dear friend Bob Turner won in this district. So to say that the party is going extinct isn't fair. They had a better social media campaign. They had better outreach. They had a better candidate. If we had Chris Christie, maybe if he won in 2007, just a better candidate, maybe a better set of candidates, we could have won this race. This wasn't you have no shot in hell ever. They won the last 3
But
years.
nationally, they're not going to be able to win. I mean, House races, we all know how gerrymandered House races.
Both sides.
Both sides, true. But so when you say that there are more Republican districts, but that doesn't necessarily mean that there are more people in those districts, because we have a district in the city that has a couple million people, and you have another district in Wyoming that has a couple thousand.
Well, we have a district that I live in right now that voted 88% for Barack Obama in 2008, so it's gerrymandered on both sides.
Yeah, it's gerrymandered on both sides, but I'm saying,
All right,
I don't think you can use the House as a barometer for it.
But when the Democrats go into Election Day with a 30 representative advantage, and on Wednesday morning they're at a 50-plus disadvantage, and you're losing swing districts that you've never lost before, don't tell me the party is extinct. You had your best candidate in 60 years. You had your best candidate since either Kennedy or FDR.
But I'm not saying it's extinct. I'm saying it's going to have a lot of problems when it comes to running national offices. Because locally, look, we have representatives that tend to conform to
Congressional races
who lives
are
there.
not local.
So, yeah, they are.
Congressional races are not local.
They're local.
Bob Turner did not win. Bob Turner did not win last September because he was a great guy.
Let's be honest, that was a district that was going to be eliminated, and each party just basically.
That's a district that was 66% Democrat, and a Republican businessman from Rockaway won it.
Well, we didn't pick a strong candidate for them, but they're not national races because they don't have a national constituency.
We will be right back with you in a couple moments. We will talk about the ballot initiatives that were on the ballot across the country.